How's it going, everyone? Daxellz today, reacting to the newest Cause art video. The internet is worse than ever. Now what? That makes sense. The internet's kind of scummy right now. But anyway, let's get straight into it. And away we go.
In 2022, nearly half of Americans expected a civil war in the next few years.
What?
1 in 5 now believes political violence is justified. And it's not just the US, but around the world. People increasingly see themselves as part of opposing teams. There are many different reasons for this, but one gets blamed a lot: social media. Social media.
I think it fuels it, yeah. But I think people, nonetheless, over the years, yeah, it fuels it, makes it go faster, and then we do it more. But I feel like people are going to be there inevitably. Like the different classes in the world, like there's rich people, poor people, working people. I mean, there's all these different categories people are in, and we're boxed into. And some people are being mistreated and some are not. And then some parties choose to do this and some parties choose to do that. It's just inevitable. Yeah, it fuels it. Everyone can talk to each other and argue about it, but I don't think the internet is the main cause.
Extreme and less empathetic. It riles us up or sucks us into doom scrolling, making us stressed and depressed. It feels like we need to touch grass and escape to the real world. New research shows that we might have largely misinterpreted why this is the case. It turns out that the social media internet may uniquely undermine the way our brains work, but not in the way you think. The myth of the filter bubble.
The filter
You've
bubble?
probably heard about online filter bubbles. Algorithms give you exactly what you want or what they think you want.
Yeah.
You only see information that shows you opinions that agree with yours, while dissenting opinions or information are filtered out.
Wrong. I would get a lot of things that I would strongly or maybe disagree with, and that's more likely shown to me, especially Twitter. That's why I refuse to go on Twitter. It shows you things on Twitter, or X now, that you don't want to see, so you end up arguing with people. It's just a cesspit of a place.
Since you only see content close to your worldview, more extreme and toxic opinions suddenly seem less extreme.
Wrong.
You're trapped in a radicalizing filter bubble, and your view of the world becomes narrower and more extreme. But is that true?
No.
Extreme filter bubbles seem to be rather rare. Studies that investigated what people actually look at online or are shown by search engines found little evidence that you're ideologically isolated. It's the exact opposite.
Yep.
Online, you are constantly confronted with opinions and worldviews that are not your own.
Yes.
It turns out that the place where you are the most ideologically isolated is your real life, in the real world, with real people.
Exactly.
Your real-world interactions with your friends, family, colleagues and neighbours are much less diverse than your online bubble. The filter bubble exists in your real life, not online.
Yep.
Okay, wait. Online filter bubbles have been the prevailing explanation as to why we've all started hating each other more over the last 2 decades. If that's not the case, shouldn't the internet open our minds and make us more empathetic with each other? Unfortunately, your brain is stupid. Your brain is stupid. Human brains didn't evolve to understand the true nature of reality, but to navigate and maintain social structures. Our ancestors desperately needed each other to survive, so our brains had to make sure we cooperated. That's why social isolation or exclusion feels so horrible, because it was actually life-threatening. A tribe that worked together survived. A divided tribe died. The way communities worked for thousands of years is that, sure, you may have disliked a neighbour, but because you lived close to each other, you also rooted for the same sports club or saw them at church. You both thought that the people from the other village were idiots. Being physically close made you familiar and created similarities that bridge the gap of different worldviews, so you didn't murder each other. And your worldview was probably not that different in the first place because it was formed by the same local culture. When our brains evolved, this was enough. Whoever was around was similar to us. We liked what was similar to us. This kept us aligned enough to work together despite our differences.
Of course.
As humanity moved on from small tribes to towns and cities, from chiefdoms to kingdoms to nations, our brains and our communities had to adapt to more diverse sets of neighbours. We began to meet on the town square or in universities where we argued and screamed at each other. But in the grand scheme of things, communities were still relatively isolated, we were still pretty similar and aligned with the people around us. Conflict and disagreement are not a bad thing per se. tension over how we
Gives you
should
different
live can
views.
create new and wonderful things. Our values, norms, and taboos are always evolving, and whatever we think is normal today will not be normal in the future. But we
For
also
sure,
need
yeah.
social glue to hold our societies together, because our brains don't care about the meta level of humanity, but about being safe in a tribe. Until about 20 years ago, we did something truly new that hit our brains like a freight train. The social media internet, the digital town square.
Where you getting at, buddy?
Don't you dare disagree with me. Social
will.
sorting. In a nutshell, our brains are not able to process the amount of disagreement we encounter on the social internet. The very mechanisms that made it possible for our ancestors to work together in the first place are derailed in ways we were not prepared for. Whether you want it to or not, your brain sorts people by worldviews and opinions into teams. This is not simply tribalism, it goes further.
I don't do this though, man. I'm a bit weird. I don't put people into categories like this. I'm gonna let him go on. Maybe I do, but I'm gonna
social sorting.
I don't.
On the
social
digital
sort.
town square, you encounter people that express opinions or share information that clash with your worldview. But unlike your neighbor, they don't root for your local sports club. You're missing the local social glue your brain needs to align with them. For your brain, the disagreement between yourself and them becomes a central part of their identity. And this makes it less likely that you will seriously consider their position or opinion in the future. If you hear bad things about them, your brain is much more likely to believe it uncritically. On the flip side, there are people who share your worldview and are maybe even more similar to you than many people in your real life, which makes your brain like them a lot and kind of hyper-align with them. People who think like you are probably good people because you're a good person and whatever social group you belong
No. You could have a completely different opinion to someone else, but just because someone has the same opinion as you doesn't mean that they're right and you're right. Do you know what I mean? I don't think
to
that's
is
right.
good. So your brain is more likely to believe their opinions. If you hear bad things about them, your brain is much more likely to dismiss it uncritically. The engagement-driven social internet makes it worse because it wants to keep you online as long as possible. And the most engaging emotion is, unfortunately, anger.
Yeah.
The more angry you get, the more likely you are to share and engage, and this leads to social media amplifying the most extreme and controversial opinions. It optimizes not only to show us disagreement, but the worst disagreement possible. And because you're stupid,
I think this whole factor is factoring Twitter, X, right? So this is the platform that shows you all this. You go onto Instagram, it's showing you pictures of things that you're interested in, food, other people, etc., etc. That's just going to be normal. You go onto your Facebook, you're only going to be shown adverts of things you want to do, groups that you've joined, and also all of your friends' activities. You go onto Twitter, you're mixed with an algorithm of just things you do not want to see, or do not want to talk about, or do want to talk about, or people talking about things that you think they shouldn't be talking about. Therefore, making it a bit of a mess of arguments and just chatter in the end of it. But other social medias don't do this. This video is directly against Twitter, which I can understand. They probably don't like the Elon Musk Twitter, but even Twitter before Elon Musk is bad. So it's literally, video is entirely about Twitter. The other platforms, it doesn't really apply to.
stupid brain is sorting people into teams, whatever the worst opinions are, it assigns the same opinions to everybody on the other team. What's striking and new about online polarization is that all the aspects of our lives that make us individuals, our lifestyle choices, the comedians or shows we watch, our religion, sense of fashion and so on, are condensed, making it seem that they're parts of opposing and mutually exclusive identities. This simplifies and distorts disagreements about how we should run society so much that it often seems as if the people on the other team are actively, willfully making the world worse. That they're almost evil, beyond convincing with rationality, facts, or civil discussion.
I don't know. I have different political views with my friends, and I watch different TV shows, right? We watch we have lots of similarities as well, like with gaming and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's good to have friends that are opposing you half the time, most of the time, not all the time. Do you know what I mean? But if you have different opinions on stuff, you shouldn't sit there with someone that's just sitting there agreeing with each other. You know what I mean? All the time. Like, you can have times where you agree with each other, but not all the time. because you're not seeing the other side of the world. You're not experiencing other people, other experiences. Do you know what I mean? Everyone lives a different life, so I don't think it's an us v them thing.
While you are, of course,
I think a majority of people do live like this, where they put an us-them category, especially very political people. Like if you support a different party to someone else, especially in America, Americans take politics very seriously. And if you're not choosing a singular party, you're the worst. You're worse than someone that's on the opposite side because you're like a fence sitter, so they say.
on the correct team, it may be hard to process that you may seem like that to the team. On a societal level, this is dissolving the social glue that's the foundation of our democracies. If we think our neighbors are evil, how can we live together? This is especially bad in the US, where the two parties...
Like he said earlier, that's not a case, because if you're in your real life, you are more likely to be in a bubble with people that are like you. So where you live is basically on class anyway, on your status in society, you're in a localized area that's the same as you. So that's not going to be the case. You're not going to be annoyed with your neighbors.
System makes it extra easy to think of people in terms of teams. Negative opinion about the other party has reached record highs.
Yeah.
Okay, is there something we can learn from this? Is there something
be
we can
open-minded.
do? Something more positive. Opinion part. In the end, it's important to be aware of what social media does to your brain.
Yeah.
It's easier to change yourself than to change the world, so you can self-examine why you believe the things you believe,
keeping an open
and whether
mind,
you
baby.
dismiss or believe information based on who the person is who is stating that information. The internet comes with a lot of ups and downs, and just like we had to adapt from living in small tribes to living in cities, we need to adapt to the information age where we have access to billions of people. Evolution is too slow, so we need to find models that work with what our brains are able to tolerate.
I think this as well has given people, what's the word? They've given people the opportunity to have their own opinion, have their own voice, actually be a part of having a choice of what they want in the world. And if they don't like it, they can speak up about it. Because back in the days, like, because there was no internet, they just followed newspapers, which would be glorified like propaganda sent out to everyone and stuff. So you see personalized information of what that person, that individual thinks, and then you can take that information in and then look at it and then discuss it between yourself and then decide if you want to believe in that person and their choices or not. So I think it's a love-hate relationship, the internet. That's what it is.
One model that seemed to work well was the pre-social media internet old people might remember. Bulletin boards, forums, blogs. The main difference to today was twofold. For one, there were no algorithms fighting to keep you online at any cost. At some point, you were done with the internet for the day, as mind-blowing as this may sound. But more importantly, the old internet was very fractured, split into thousands of different communities, like small villages gathering around shared beliefs and interests. These villages were separated from each other by digital rivers or mountains. These communities worked because they mirrored real life much more than social media. Each village had its own culture and set of rules. Maybe one community was into rough humor and soft moderation, another had strict rules and banned easily. If you didn't play by the village rules, you'd be banned, or you could just go and move to another village that suited you better. So instead of all of us gathering in one place, overwhelming our brains at a town square that in the end just leads us to going insane, one solution to achieve less social sorting may be extremely simple. Go back to smaller online communities.
No.
Because what our stupid brains don't realize is that we are actually all on the same team. Humanity, on a wet rock, speeding through space in a universe that doesn't think about us. We are all in this together. But until our brains adjust to being able to deal with that, we might be better off being a tiny bit separated.
Nah. Internet segregation is not the answer.
One of the worst things about the media we consume is that most news organizations tend to cater to one team, making you feel you're on the correct side. Ground News, the sponsor of this video, is trying...
Okay, that's the advertisement. Yeah, and make sure you check out Cosgazart's channel, by the way. It's very informative and stuff. But I feel like, news is very tailored towards the people they support as a news company. So they're not ones to go off. Literally, if you just got rid of Twitter, 90% of the arguments online will drastically decrease. You know what I mean? Oh, that was a good video though. May I hate politics. I really do. I don't like it. I leave the politics to the politicians so I can hate someone. I'm joking. But anyway, yeah, just have an open mind. Just be the better person, because at the end of the day, you can't change everyone's opinions. You can't change everyone's minds. So until that day when they discover, or their children discover, that they were right or wrong, or you were right or wrong, it's the future generations to decide. But there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be different opinions. Like, we're split up into so many different countries. We're all going to have different cultures and stuff. It's going to take a while for everyone to get on. So if they do get on, do you know what I mean? Like, there's still people nowadays that aren't getting on, and it's not for one person to decide this. It's for everyone to decide it. So I don't think the internet's a bad thing, and I don't think it's going to cause any bad problems. It's just the way you use it. It's the individuals themselves and how they adapt to it. That's my opinions. Anyway, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to check out the original in the description down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I will see you in the next video. Laters.